Good evening and welcome to the February 3rd, 2015 Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'm going to go through the agenda quickly, and as you can see, there's only 3 of us, so we're going to keep things tight. The chair reserves the right to call items on the agenda out of order. The times that are listed for items are approximate times, and items may be reached earlier or later than the posted times. The listing of items is those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. It's 6:30, or roughly, we're a little over our time. We're going to break for executive session, meeting with Bill Keegan and Mary Beth Bernard to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with union personnel. Tonight is the dispatcher's contract. At 7 o'clock will be citizens' input. At 7:05 will be the selectmen's update. At 7:10, we're going to meet with Attorney Frank Spillane regarding the proposed 40B project on Fisher Street. At 7:30, we're going to meet with Attorney John Mitchellmore regarding a discussion, and because of the number here tonight, we may not be able to vote on a new set of directors and officers for Foxborough Country Club. At 7:40, we're going to meet with Randy Scollins, who's going to give us a fiscal year 16 operating budget review. At 7:55, the Board of Selectmen will discuss our spring warrant articles. And at 8:05 approximately, Bill Keegan will give his town manager update. Okay, could you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session, being about 7:40, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with union personnel, specifically the dispatcher's contract.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and then come out for...
Oh, yeah, and we'll come out roughly about 7 o'clock to go into public session.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, welcome back. It's just a little bit past 7 o'clock, and we'll proceed with the agenda. Next item is citizens' input. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment, bring something to our attention? No? Okay. Selectmen's update. It's actually, I know that it's been a very trying week for everybody weather-wise, and I just wanted to thank publicly all of the town hall employees who kept town hall open during the storm, and all the public works department, the water department, and everyone really that kept the town running. I don't think winter's over yet, so that we're going to see a few more episodes of this. And I also wanted to publicly thank the Patriots for giving us a reprieve in the middle of this by giving us another Super Bowl victory. So it's been a very interesting week, ups and downs. So thanks for your patience with the streets. I was around town today, and they look reasonably good. But let's pray we don't get any more snow on Thursday. And I heard there might be a storm next Monday, so stand by. It's 7:10. We're going to meet with Attorney Frank Spillane. Frank, you ready?
Right on cue, right?
And Frank is going to give us a, you're the representing attorney, right? All right.
Frank, so we don't have an extra copy of that by any chance, do you?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
It's gonna just take that. Yeah, but yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Attorney Frank Spillane. Here with me is David Hall, who's with the Hanover Company. Also with me tonight is civil engineer Bill Buckley of Bay Colony Group. can just have a moment, we'd like to put up some pretty pictures for you.
Can you kind of tilt those so the audience can see them as well? I don't know how we're gonna make that all work, but we'll try. Yeah, I'll fit that in.
What I've handed out to the board, and the extra copies back there for the public, is just a little project fact sheet with regard to domain Foxborough, which is the proposed 40B project on Fisher Street. And behind it is the colored drawing right there. What we'd like to do is give the board a little overview of the site as well as the project and some of the issues that have been discussed with regard to this project. Initially, again, the location is on Fisher Street. It's an undeveloped, open and wooded lot. It's approximately 18 acres with approximately just under 1 acre of wetlands, which is on the northeastern corner of the property. The property abuts Route 95 northbound, as well as the off-ramp onto Route 140 going north. That's on the north side of the property. On the east side of the property is Route 140, as well as commercial properties, which is the Comfort Inn and the 99 Restaurant. It's on the south side of the property is Fisher Street, again with the Comfort Inn. And on the west side is South High Street with some residential homes. The property is zoned partially in the highway business and partially in the R40 zone district. Approximately 8.3 acres is in the highway business district, and approximately 9.8 acres is in the R40 district. The highway business is the portion, a little under half of the lot, closest to the 99 and Comfort Inn. The residential portion of the property is closest to South High Street. There's approximately 340 plus feet of frontage on Fisher Street, and just over 500 feet of frontage on, 400 feet of frontage on South High Street. There's quite an elevation drop from the South High Street portion of the lot down by the Comfort Inn. It's approximately a 50-foot elevation drop from the height. Right around South High Street, the elevation's approximately 260. Down by the wetlands, by the Comfort Inn, it's down approximately 212. The frontage closest to the Comfort Inn is at 216, so there's quite an elevation drop along the property. What the Hanover Company is proposing is a 248 unit residential apartment complex that'll have an outdoor pool, clubhouse, and other amenities. There will be 5 residential buildings, each of them 4 stories high. So the height will be just under 60 feet, approximately 59.5 feet high. 25% or 60 of the units will be affordable. As the rendering indicates, access will be from a full-service boulevard type driveway with a medium in between the entrance and the exit. And it'll intersect with Fisher Street on the north side as far down and as closest to where the Comfort Inn is possible. The site will accommodate 447 parking spaces. 42 of those spaces will be in detached garages. So there'll be 7 garages in total throughout the complex. That ends up being approximately 1.8 parking spaces per residential unit. Hanover feels very comfortable that there'll be more than enough parking spaces required there. Again, at the northeastern portion of the property, there's about 1 acre, just under 1 acre of wetlands that we're going to be keeping far enough away from so it's not becoming an issue. Within the 5 residential buildings, there'll be 122 one-bedrooms, 102 two-bedrooms, and 24 three-bedrooms. And again, 25% of each of those have to be affordable. One of the differences between this project and Foxborough Lodge, which Hanover did, is that there will be 24 three-bedrooms. Currently, mass housing requires 10% to be 3 bedrooms. Back when the Foxborough Lodge was done, it was not a requirement, so there are no 3 bedrooms. But now to do a 40B, a minimum of 10% has to be 3 bedrooms. So we're going to have 24 3 bedrooms. 6 of those will be affordable. There will be 12 handicap accessible units. 2 of those will be affordable. The one-bedrooms range in size from approximately 700 square feet to about 770 square feet. There'll also be one-bedrooms with a study that can get up over 1,000 square feet. The 2-bedrooms range from approximately 1,100 square feet, a little over that, to just under 1,300 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms are planned to be 1,444 square feet. The lot coverage is an issue that Hanover takes a great deal of pride over. Approximately just over 6 acres of the lot, or just about 35% of the lot, will be covered. The remaining portion, about 65%, will be open space. As you can see all around the project itself, they're planning on leaving a lot of the trees in the open space as much as possible. And in the middle area, they want to leave as much as open space as possible. And they've already gone out there and started marking trees that they want to keep within that area. So that's something very important to them, that they want to maintain as many of the trees as they can. And they take great pride in that. The affordable rate units will be approximately just over $1,000 for 1 bedroom. 2-bedroom will be about $1,300, and a 3-bedroom approximately $1,600. Whereas the market rate units will be just over $1,600 for 1 bedroom, just under $2,500 for a 2-bedroom, and approximately $3,000 for a 3-bedroom. Right now, the Foxborough Lodge is assessed at over $28 million, so it brings in just under $500,000 from my calculations. We expect this project to be at least that same amount. With regard to students, the Foxborough Lodge is averaging 24 and a half students for the last 5 years. I called Bill Euchner at the schools, and he gave me 4 of the last 5 years. 1 year they just didn't have the numbers for. Currently there are 29 students going there. In the past years it's been 20, 24, and 25 students, so it averages about 24 and a half students. When we did the initial Foxborough Lodge project, we estimated 26 students, so we were in the ballpark. At this time, we haven't done an estimation of the students, but I did try to do a back of an envelope type of estimation, and I did talk to Bill Euchner about it a little bit. I would estimate that the main difference between the two, again, is the 3 bedrooms. So I would estimate the students to be in the high 20s, low 30s, but when we, number of students from this project. But when we go in front of the Board of Appeals, we'll have more concrete numbers with regard to that. One of the issues that we're still in preliminary stages, but Jeff Dirk of Vanessa and Associates is here with us tonight, has done some preliminary work looking at traffic. Currently on what they call an average weekday, there's 755 vehicle trips with a peak of 81 vehicle trips in the morning and 82 vehicle trips per hour in the morning. The project is expecting to put on a average weekday just over 1,600 additional vehicle trips. A vehicle trip is one car leaving, that's one. If one car comes in, that's the second one. So during the peak hour, using all of his estimations, the highest total of the traffic he could expect to go out onto South Street is at most 10%. He's actually estimating 3%, but if you include individuals that would go up to Forbes Boulevard to go either east or west and assume they're gonna take South High Street, which is not a safe assumption, but assuming that, it could bring it up to a possibly high number of 10%. At that would, at the peak hour in the morning, it would add a total of 13 vehicle trips to South High Street. Again, assuming all those things, that would be one car every 4 minutes. In the peak PM hour, it's approximately 16 additional trips, or one every 3.5 minutes, an additional car. Right now, and Jeff is still in the preliminary stages of looking at it, they're not projecting any major renovations to any of the roadways, because all of them are working at level of service of B or better, but they will be working on the lights to get them timing and phasing plans as appropriate. And finally, before I ask David just to speak briefly about the project and the Hanover Company, as we've indicated and talked to the board and members of the town, by adding these 248 units to Foxborough's inventory, using Foxborough's planning data, we would expect that the town would be above the 10% required from the state, even through the 2030 census. So the town would be good until the 2040 census was done. So with that brief overview done, I'd just like to ask David just to briefly start about the project and Hanover Company itself.
Great. Thank you, Frank. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, very nice to be here tonight. I'll be brief. That was a good update by Frank. And we've been here before. The lodge at Foxborough was built, we started that process in 2004, believe it or not, and finished in '09. And that happened to be one of our more successful projects around the country of that type of product. So that's the reason we're back. We're very pleased with the location and our relationship with the town, and we think that project has also gone well for the town, or we haven't heard otherwise. So we're pleased to be back before you. And one of the best things to say about the project is how similar it is going to be to the lodge, or if there's any mystery about what this might feel like or look like, it doesn't have to be, because you can go over and look at it. It's very similar to what we have done before. If you don't remember about the Hanover Company, I'll give you a brief summary, very brief. The company is based in Houston, Texas. We're a national company building strictly apartment buildings, totally focused on one product type, and don't stray from that. We have offices and projects in most major U.S. cities. Boston happens to be our biggest market in the country. We have an office at the Seaport, in the Seaport District, and we've done well over 5,000 apartment homes in the eastern part of the state. I think it's 15 separate projects, 7 of which are under construction right now. So I mentioned the lodge. There's projects in Tewksbury, 2 in Braintree, 2 in Cambridge, 1 in Boston. I could rattle off a bunch of cities and towns. The point being, again, if there's any question or inquiry into another project we've done, I'd be happy to get information, conduct tours, arrange discussions with other town leaders. We pride ourselves on having good relationships with the towns in which we do business. We strive to build the highest end luxury units we can possibly build within the market. So we take great care with things like landscaping, with things like high-end amenities and quality finishes. This is a quality project, as was the lodge. Frank began to point out some of the differences with Lodge, and I think I'll stress a couple of those. Similar size sites, this is a little smaller, but we're condensing the project in a much smaller footprint. So the disturbance area, I think you said 6 acres, but it's really, that whole area that you see, colored for the project is about 10 acres. The disturbance area at the Lodge was about 14 or 15 acres. So and these are 4-story buildings, the Lodge was 3-story buildings. So by going to 4 stories, we're able to condense on a much smaller footprint. We think it's good for our residents because those buildings have elevators, but it's much better for the town and the community because there's so much buffer. Those wooded areas are really substantial in size. And I think the distance and the thickness of that tree cover is exceptional. We made an effort to move the site and the entrance to the site as far toward Route 140 as we possibly could and away from the neighborhood. The entrance, as I said, we could have entered really anywhere along Fisher Street, but we pushed it. You can see how it's just nudged all the way down toward the hotel and the 99 restaurant. We put together a rendered snapshot of the project, somewhat from a bird's eye view in the second board you see here. It's very similar to the Lodge in the look and feel, with those stone accent pieces, hardy plank paneling, pitched residential style roofs. What we're going to do to make it different is different colorations. We want to distinguish it from the Lodge and not look like we stamped out another copy. So these are gray tones and kind of different colors than the earth tones of the Lodge. The amenity building is quite different in design, and it's a little larger than the Lodge, but a similar mix of amenities, as Frank said, a great outdoor pool, outdoor barbecue areas, a lot of places for residents to congregate and enjoy the outdoors, and then a fitness center, a movie screening room, a great room, recreation room, and that kind of thing within the project. Why don't I stop there, because I thought it was the best use of time is your questions and the audience's questions, however the board would like to proceed, but that's basically our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Any questions, Ginny, Jim?
Kind of as we, thank you, appreciate it. I think what we talked about last time was where our review is somewhat limited. It would be public safety, public health, and kind of municipal planning. We were going to reach out to the department heads for input. Have we received anything back?
Nothing as of yet. We have some limited input so far.
Okay. And where are you guys with respect to the neighbors? And there was a meeting that was canceled because of
Yes,
the
we had a
snow.
meeting scheduled for last night. It was
Yep.
postponed due to the snow. We've rescheduled for next Wednesday evening. So I believe that's good for most of the neighbors, and I think that's on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where's that going to be held?
It's at the Courtyard Marriott on
Okay.
Foxborough Boulevard.
With respect to the, not the site plan per se, but the density, where did that come up with the number of 13.7 units per acre with respect to the eligibility letter? Was the finance dictating the density, or was the site plan dictating the density? The reason I'm asking, because the 10% number, how does this all fit together when you go to the state and look at the finances of this?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, Jim, but the Foxborough's population dictates how large a 40B project can be allowed, and that's 250. So Lodge at Foxborough was limited to 250.
250.
We elected to go to 248 only because it just laid out better in terms of the breakdown, and we had to go to larger units with the 3 bedrooms. So
And the 3 bedrooms is not a choice anymore, that's a
it
requirement?
is not.
Okay.
Jim, there's a requirement by DHCD that requires 10% 3-bedroom units. So we can't exceed the cap of 250. We want to go right up to it, and that was just a planning decision to stop at 248. It fits beautifully on the site, though. It's by no means overdeveloping the site, provided the traffic works, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a better location, even if you can argue it's a better location than the Lodge. It's right at 140 and the highway, and most of the traffic is headed out toward the main roads.
And with respect to off-site improvements, did I hear you say there's no off-site improvements planned at this time, roadway widenings and other than timing?
If I could invite Jeff Dirk to answer those kind of questions, I don't, if the board would.
Yep, sure.
Okay. Jeff, why don't you
Under the
start?
context of public safety, that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, he
get
started
my
his
arms around.
traffic study and has an idea of this, so if you don't mind, Jeffrey, introduce yourself.
Certainly. Good evening. For the record, Jeffrey Dirk, Principal with Vanessa and Associates. I think as both Frank and David had mentioned, we're at the initial stage of the traffic study, but at least from what we've ascertained from the data we've collected and looking at the crash data, volume, speed, all that type of information, at this point, what we're proposing is some signal timing improvements out along 140. As was mentioned, the initial look at everything is that the most of the traffic is actually going to be coming up to the signal at Fisher Street and 140 and turning left or right, most of it heading towards the interchange. So there's some need at the signalized intersections to adjust to account for those added demands in traffic flow. But the intersections themselves, they're not operating very efficiently from what we have found, but there is capacity there. And so we're using the available capacity and adjusting the signal timing to process the additional traffic demands.
Now, is that the signal timing just at 140 and Fisher, or is going up and down 140?
Going up and down the corridor, so it'll be the next intersection as well at Forbes Boulevard, I believe. That those two signals are tied together. They work together in concert. If they're not, they need to be. So we're actually going to be working on both of those signalized intersections.
Okay. And does the study go as far as the next intersection, Walnut Street?
It doesn't go that far. It basically, right now, the initial study looks at the interchange and then goes down to Forbes, so those intersections, then along Fisher Street down to South Street as well, down to that intersection.
So
South
off
High
Fisher,
Street.
left on South, and then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is where the majority of the traffic, once it gets outside of that area, the volumes actually drop off significantly to a point where it really wouldn't affect traffic operations per se.
Okay. And that anticipates right in, right out, full turning movement on the
Full-
intersection on Fisher?
Correct, full turning movements.
Yeah, that's it for now.
So the size of Fisher Street, the width of it, you believe is adequate?
It's adequate to accommodate the traffic volumes that we're talking about. It varies somewhere between 22 to 24 feet in width. It's variable along its alignment. We did note, I think, what are kind of the obvious things, which are there are no sidewalks, and that width does not allow for bicycle accommodations on the street itself. Fisher Street, in particular, the only thing that really was of note in our analysis, there wasn't a significant crash history or anything like that, as you were talking about public health, safety, and welfare. But we did note the speeds of the traffic on that roadway. It has a 30-mile-an-hour posted speed limit, and I think in conjunction with the volume measurements that Frank had mentioned, the speeds in particular, most predominantly around 40. So they're about 10 miles an hour higher than what the posted speed limit is in that area there, which was important to us as we looked at the driveway to make sure that you had adequate sight lines for that. But I think if anything that pointed out, that jumped out at us, there's plenty of capacity on the roadway, but that was the only thing that was kind of atypical in that the town, based on the posted speed limit, seems to desire speeds around 30, and what the actual speeds are closer to 40 miles an hour.
James?
I was gonna say, so the process you anticipate going in front of the conservation, you did the ANRAD already, or is that in the middle of the conservation delineation
We're in
of the
front of
wetland?
conservation. We've had one meeting. We've had the site walk. We're supposed to have a second meeting last Monday that was just canceled, so the snow. I believe we're on for next Monday.
And then,
Also be canceled too, by the way.
What's that?
Which was a chance to be canceled as well.
Don't tell me.
Yeah, more snow on the way.
and then obviously the ZBA, is a process entailed going in front of the planning board for a informal review or a formal review?
Not at this point. When we did the Foxborough Lodge, I don't believe we did either. But we have informally shown it to members of the planning board, as well as the town planner and the building inspector.
Okay.
When we met with you at the site, I remember public safety questioned whether there would be another emergency exit. Is that, that's not noted in the plans. Where would that be? And
Well,
It was suggested that
Yeah,
there
it
be
was
an amendment.
suggested, and we've
Suggested, not mandated.
we've heard it
was
before,
suggested.
and we're very open-minded to it. We expect the neighbors will not want it, just saying that. There are places to do it up at the very top of South High Street or another entrance onto Fisher Street. You can see where the parking lots get closest to there'd be a place to do even a dirt road with a fence and emergency-only vehicles. But we think we can arrange this site. The concern for public safety would be a tree falls across the one entrance you have, and you can't get in or out. But we can mitigate that. The width, and Jeff mentioned this, it's something I saw you worked on, but the width of that as a boulevard entry with a median and properly cutting back major trees that could conceivably fall is a way to do that. So if the ZBA, as we get into it and in discussions with the neighbors, feel that one entrance in and out is sufficient, we can do it such that it's highly unlikely that there'd be a tree that could fall and block both entrances. But you won't find us being hard against that concept. It's easy to do. We do it on many other sites. But we think this is a safe site as shown. So we thought we'd leave it like this, get before the ZBA and have the discussion.
And are these all rental units, or are they condos?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, just another, when we did the Foxborough Lodge, the Foxborough Lodge has one entrance, a boulevard entrance and exit like this. And there was a discussion about a second entrance exit along Central Street, and then neighbors along Central Street in that area. I didn't want that second entrance there, so that wasn't put on that one. So Foxborough Lodge has that one entrance exit as depicted here.
And as far as the amenities, the pool, the clubhouse, the landscaping, is that where it's all rental units, does that mean the Hanover Company is in charge of that?
Yes.
And they will maintain that?
Yes, we maintain that.
The use of the clubhouse and the pool, that's part of the rent, or is there an association fee associated with that?
No additional charges for any of the amenities, so that's part of the rent. Yes.
Bill, you had a question?
And just a couple thoughts. With respect to the emergency access, I think the concern would be that in the event of a major fire or whatever the case may be, the ability for people to access escape from the property, off the property, for emergency personnel to use the property. Seems logical to me that you could look at possibly access onto the hotel property as an emergency access. Not so much for the cutting of a tree falling across, but more to the volume of traffic coming off the property at one point. Maybe utilizing that space as emergency access onto the property, obviously just for that purpose only. All right, one thought. Second thought I had was obviously with all the snow that we have around right now, looking at the lodge, that seems to be a snow storage challenge right now. I would suggest to you that I think most of my colleagues in my business nowadays say that we're in a unique environmental change here going on in the world. We ought to be planning for additional snow capacity. Obviously, these storms are storms like I've never seen before, so we should be planning for that accordingly.
If I may, we will do a snow management plan for the ZBA. That's one of the plans we will issue, and we'll show and find places on the site to store. I agree with you, Mr. Keegan. That's an important consideration. We do always have the option of trucking it off, and I'm sure that at our properties today there was a trucking operation going on because you just can't find no one can find enough room to put it all. But
Correct.
You're right.
Now's
More
the time to
planning.
plan for it, though. Where you
Yep,
gotta
more
plan
planning. Absolutely. No one wants that problem.
The area that you designate as the wetlands area, and would the whole area be only for use by the residents of the project, or would townspeople be able to walk through the woods, or make use of the area for passive recreation, or would that be like gated?
Well, our plan is it wouldn't be gated at the entrance. We've tried that, and it becomes an inconvenience for the residents. But we do propose essentially fencing the entire property. And we find neighbors in this sort of situation want a fence. They don't want our folks cutting through the woods and walking through their neighborhood. And the fence can provide additional screening, which we always find residents want. So I think the answer to your question is no, it's private property, and it wouldn't be a walking area for residents. And we think that's mutual, that the neighborhood generally does not want that kind of cross-traffic pedestrian-wise. We're going to put some walking trails the best we can to make use of those woods. But we didn't plan on the general public having access to it. Certainly not the amenities, the pool and that kind of thing. Those
Oh,
are
I
private
wouldn't
amenities.
expect- I
Those
don't
are
think
private
anybody-
amenities.
I don't
Yeah,
think anybody, any of the neighbors would be
they
expected to
pay
be
good
using
rent
your
to use
pool.
that. Right,
Yeah.
right. If the neighbors find that they'd prefer not to have a fence, we're not saying we have to have a fence, but I think I can predict that they're going to want it, and we're happy to put it up.
Okay. Any other questions, Jim?
I think, I mean, our goal, but I think what we're obligated to do or should do is draft up a letter with our findings. Site plan aside, we're leaving that up to the ZBA, but I think I would expect the department heads to give us their written review at the early stage on the concept stuff, water, sewer, conservation, Board of Health, if they have any issues, because that's what we have to base our review on.
We actually have we have a department head meeting next week, then we're going to have everybody's input by then.
Okay.
Sounds like you're trying to wrap up, Mr. Chairman. If I could point out one more slide for the board.
Yeah, that's fine. Actually, I was
Okay.
going to actually
Oh,
take input from
fine. Oh,
anyone
yeah,
who wants
absolutely, and that's fine. This is a section through the site. The building depicted to the right would be the first apartment building. Actually, which apartment building is that, Jenna? Do you know? Is that number 3? It's 4. It's
Yeah.
building 4. Thank you.
On the colored plan, you see the number 1, and you see a straight line to
Oh, yeah, it says building 4.
That's the depiction.
And the home at the left is I believe the first home at the corner of South High and Fisher Street. And we did this to show two things. One, as Frank mentioned, the site does sit in a hole. You can see between 240 and 256 elevation. We're 16 feet below the elevation of South High Street. So if anyone's concerned about the height of the buildings is mitigated by this drop in elevation. And the thickness and size of those trees, as you can see, creates a great screen to those homes. And the width of that screen is consistent with how much forested area we show between building 4 and the home. So we hadn't shown this earlier, and I wanted to make sure the board and the audience saw that.
So on that elevation, you indicate there's 9-foot floor to floor. Is that for all the floors?
It's 9-foot ceiling heights. The floor to floor is probably about 11 and a half,
Okay. So it's 4 full stories plus
plus the pitch of the
plus
roof.
the pitch of the roof. Has there been
Right.
consideration to lower the pitch of the roof into the 4th floor to drop a 3/4 of a floor?
We've been asked by many towns to look at that, and snow loads, good topic.
I'm not talking about a flat roof. I'm
Yeah.
saying the living quarters inside the pitch of the roof. A lot of places do
Oh,
that.
raise it up to get more ceiling height. Yeah, we've tried that.
No. See where the triangle part is?
Yeah.
Lower that. So you've got the living space in the triangle part. So you're basically looking at, I don't know if that's a dormer on the front, but you could lose that.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have looked at that. Yeah. Yeah.
What you're
And-
showing, oh, I'm sorry.
It hasn't been economic to build it,
Okay.
and the
What-
residents don't particularly care.
Residents living in it?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm considering about the residents looking at it. That's why I was asking.
What you're showing in that is building 4,
Correct.
Down the lower left corner.
Okay.
yeah.
but what about building 5? Because if it drops 50 feet, you said, how would, if you did a scheme with building 5, how would
Yeah, we
that
can do that. We can show the ZBA that. It wouldn't be as dramatic, but it's still lower.
Well, wouldn't it be higher if it's, I thought it's
It's still
sloped
lower than
from-
South High Street. It's higher than this building. Yeah, this is just to depict it kind of along Fisher Street.
Well,
Yeah. Building 5 Mr. Buckley estimates. And again, these are all estimations right now, because it's still in planning stage. So some of these numbers will change slightly, but this is what they're expecting now. But Building 5 would be approximately at elevation 248. So again, South High Street is at approximately 260, so it's about 12 feet lower. I don't know where that closest house is, what elevation that's at, which would be a great question, and we hope to have a few more of these types of depictions.
As far as process, has an application to the town been submitted yet? Just if you could walk us through the process from this point
Okay.
forward.
Go ahead, Frank.
Well, right now, it's with Mass Housing to get site approval, and that's what the letter from the town will be addressing. Once Hanover Company gets that approval, we will then file an application with the Foxborough Board of Appeals for a comprehensive permit. We will be giving them Jeff's traffic, preliminary but not finalized plans with regard to the layout, where water, sewer, all those types of things going in, and giving them a list of the type of waivers we would need from the Foxborough zoning bylaws.
And just as, if you could put that in some reference to a timeline, when will all that?
Depending
be
on
finished?
when Mass Housing gets back to us, best case scenario is probably end of February. Best case scenario, I don't think we could file in time for March. Best case scenario would be filing in March for the April Board of Appeals hearing, and that would still be aggressive, depending on how Mr. Buckley and his engineering plans come along. We'll have to go through and look at all the waivers. So you have to have a comprehensive list of all the waivers you need. So best case scenario will be in front of them in April.
Okay. Now, the last time we talked about this, Bill, the residents were going to get questions organized, concerns organized. What was the method for them to deliver them to this group? Is that going to be in the meeting next week, or is it some other method?
I think Lorraine said that they would be emailed to her. Like,
Either or they're going to submit them on their own through the.
I'm just trying to make sure that we understand the process, because I know there's folks here, maybe they can answer how it's going to work.
I
I
was on,
believe we have to send our concerns to Mass Housing and CC it to
Right.
you guys.
It's to Mass Housing, okay.
yes, that's the way I thought it was going to be done.
So we asked for a formal extension, and I think
We
Mass
did.
Housing granted it
Yes.
till,
Till the 23rd, I believe. So we've got to the, almost to the end of this month.
okay, so we have a meeting next Tuesday. Could we get department head comments back to us and put it on the agenda for?
We are meeting
we're meeting on
Thursday,
the 12th with the department
That's
heads.
2 weeks.
which is
So we'll
next,
have it for the 17th.
May 17th meeting.
So from the 17th, we're gonna have to review it, and then probably the best way is collectively give the comments. You guys would draft up the letter?
Yes.
And then we can kind of go back and forth afterwards?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll have you something for the 17th meeting. And then if you have comments, you can just give it to us, and we'll submit to the state by the end of the deadline.
If we could request that, once you get them all compiled, if you could
Sure.
just forward them to me, that'd be great.
Okay.
I just have one more. I'm going back to public safety. Those are four-story buildings. Is that 4 stories the highest that is allowed in the town of Foxborough? And also, does our fire equipment, would it be able to go up to a 4-story building, a ladder?
You know that, Bill?
They are fully sprinkled,
Excuse me? Any?
fully sprinklered buildings,
Okay.
but, and we will research your max capacity of your fire equipment.
But do you know the answer to the first question? What's the maximum allowable height of a building? Or the maximum allowed stories to a building? Do we have any sort of bylaw that,
I don't know that off the top of my head. Do you have the
I think it
bylaws,
is
Bill?
4, if I'm not mistaken.
could we check
We
that?
talked about it for the overlay district with the firehouse, that the maximum height was 4 stories.
4 stories?
Yeah, so I assume that would apply there.
I want to say we talked about it when we were out in the field. as
In
well.
the commercial zone, it is on Forbes Boulevard, 4 stories.
Yeah.
But where
Right.
this is partial residential,
Partial residential,
But-
yeah.
because it's a 40B, you wouldn't have to
Right.
adhere to the residential requirements.
I believe there's a 4-story building over in Foxborough Park, the business park.
Is there? Okay. But that's a good question, but during the zoning board process, they're gonna actually look to see where the fire trucks move around, where they station, put the ladder up. Regardless if it's sprinkler, they still need to get people in and out.
Correct.
And just as a point of reference, in case anyone's going to jump into the car and see where this is, where the entrance is, I believe, on Fisher Street, it would be where that hydrant is, right after the 99
Right.
parking lot. So that's where the entrance would be, just in case anyone's curious as to where
Okay.
the entrance would be on Fisher Street.
Okay, we're over our time, but is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment, ask a question, point out something that we may have overlooked? Yes?
I just have one question. So
Can
that
you
I-
come up to the microphone?
Oh, sorry. Hi again, Sheila Bree on 10 Bradner Street. I couldn't hear everything. I don't know if the microphones are not working properly or whatnot, but I just want to make sure we all understand, like, give a recap loud and clear of what the next process is and how we are involved in it and what we should be doing. A meeting next Wednesday? Never heard about it. So I just want everyone to be clear and everyone understand what's happening next.
Well, maybe, could you just recap when that meeting is and where, what time, who's coming?
Yeah, we were supposed to have a neighborhood meeting on Monday last night. I sent out over 70 letters to everybody, all the neighbors on South High Street and all the streets off of South High Street, inviting them to the meeting. Because of the weather, we canceled it. I made, probably, I think I contacted about a dozen people, left voicemail messages for another dozen, and tried to track down another half dozen or so people, but unlisted numbers. It was individuals that had gone to the conservation meeting or to your meeting or to the site walks that I had, and then other people that I knew that were interested. Just today, we finalized that we're going to reschedule that meeting for next Wednesday, the 11th, at 7:00 p.m. at the Marriott Courtyard. I'll be sending out the letters tomorrow, again, to all the individuals. And we're going to announce it tonight, so anyone that showed up. Everyone I spoke with yesterday, as many as I did, I also tried to inform them about tonight's meeting. Some knew, some didn't know. So again, it'll be next Wednesday for all the neighborhood residents around Fisher Street. Next Wednesday, February 11th at 7:00 p.m. at the Marriott Courtyard,
Okay.
right here in Foxborough.
And then Sheila, from a, maybe it wasn't working before. From a regulatory, selectmen, zoning board, planning board, the applicant could have 100 meetings or no meetings with the public, that's up to them. But what to expect from the selectmen, we're reviewing this, and our eyes and ears are a lot to do with the department heads. So the town manager is reaching out to all the department heads, fire, police, conservation, board of health, planning board. And then they're gonna get their comments back to us, and we're gonna convene again on the 17th. And then we're gonna write a formal letter to the state. And our jurisdiction is, if we're seeing anything on this that is a go or no-go, if there's something that is a public safety issue from this concept, we're obligated to tell the state what it is. For instance, it could be a number of things. From that point, we kind of have to stay out of it unless it's a big public safety issue. Then it's a zoning board issue, not a planning board issue. The planning board is kind of, they're exempt from that. Planning board can give their input through us or to the zoning board. But I would suggest that you go to the zoning board meetings, those are public meetings, and that's where the concern is. If you like, don't like, whatever, you want to change it, you have issues, they're the ones that hear it and then ask the applicant to consider X, Y, and Z. on your behalf.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, sir?
Hi, John McDonald, 4 Robert Street. I just would like to point out that, well, a couple of things, but one is the trees that are shown in this sketch are mostly evergreens, it appears. And there, on that parcel, aren't a whole lot of evergreens, at least from the 1,000 times that I've gone by. I'm very curious, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to have a longer discussion about your logic around a smaller parcel that has a higher number of units. This is a residential neighborhood. The lodge is not. There are no, I'm not aware of any parcels, any residential parcels that abut the lodge. But here, you know, we're looking at a neighborhood. And, you know, all of the folks who will look through oaks and maples in January will be looking at a 4-story structure and not really nice evergreens. We would like to work with you, but we want to be realistic about where you're locating this project. This is a neighborhood of 60, 70 families, and we understand that, you know, the property will be developed, but we want it in the context of the neighborhood. So we would just appreciate that, you know, any other illustrations reflect January and the snowfall and the barrenness of it all, as well as the pretty evergreens.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, we're about a half hour over our time, so there's no further questions. Again, we'll pick it up in 2 weeks.
Good.
Okay, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Did I see John Mitchell? Oh, there he is. A half an hour ago, we were gonna talk to John Mitchell more. And, John, we might have a difficult time with this, given that there's only 3 of us here tonight.
Right, you're advertising my client in your sweater.
I know. And given that I'm
There's going to be only 2 of us.
given that I'm a member of the Foxborough Country Club, I have to recuse myself from this discussion.
Right.
So we won't have a quorum
Right.
by which to decide it. So is rescheduling a possibility?
That's fine. I was going to raise the same thing. This is really an almost completely administrative matter, but I certainly am, I share that concern myself, that at this point, you know, the ABCC is so fussy about these little details. I just don't want to raise any kind of issue, so, you know, the next meeting is fine with me.
Yeah, we apologize. What happened was that we had a last-minute cancellation from a board member who couldn't make it for an unexpected.
One question, John. My
meeting.
recollection is that this hasn't, is this the first time this has been done? Is that
Yeah,
change?
the issue is that the ABC, we filed for change of manager, and the transmittal letter was signed by the president of the club. And as you know, the president of the club is different every year. Treasurer and the clerk have been there forever.
Right.
And normally the treasurer signs it, but he was away, the president signed it. And that was not the person who was a record person at the ABCC, so they kicked that back and said, the manager is fine, but we need evidence that the person signing this is in fact, the president, and and therefore we have to do all of the queries and all that sort of silliness, so.
Okay.
I think the issue is that even though this is a member-owned club and there isn't a financial interest of the members, I think the issue is that they are having problems with some of these clubs, that there is a level of abuse in some of the club licenses where, in fact, the officers have a financial interest in the liquor license, and so that's what, I think that's what they're trying to protect against it.
Okay, but if you don't mind, I'm sorry about it, but if you don't mind, you can.
No, I understand, and I agree, actually.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
So when is the next meeting?
We have scheduled for the 17th.
17th, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Unless he wants to kick you out of the club, then we can vote tonight. Never made that club. Never made the club?
You never been? Nope.
Take a second to set things up for this next presentation.
Okay.
Yep. Pass these out to the board. Give one to Frank, so I'm sure he'll want one.
You never been up there?
Never been on the property.
No, I did not. So
Never.
I'll just give him one.
Not a big golfer.
Frank?
A lot of other things happening.
No, it's just never.
Like,
I was thinking about
There
last
was one
time
on the table,
when,
someone on
they
the
were
table.
here,
before.
just
It's
never.
just a-
get to us someday. It's kind of cool.
Larry, there's one for you too, if you want.
Randy, how long you, Randy?
2 minutes.
Yeah,
I get power, but go ahead. Good that action items.
And go through a couple action
yeah,
items?
let's go ahead.
Okay, we're going to do some action items till Randy's ready. The first item is in regard to the Foxborough Historical Commission, and it's a donation from the Boy Scout Troop 7. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance by the Foxborough Historical Commission of a donation of $100 from Foxborough Troop 7 of the Boy Scouts of America, and thank the Scouts for their donation.
I'll make a motion to accept it with gratitude, the $100 donation.
All in favor?
Second?
No,
Aye.
you did.
Oh,
You seconded.
okay, yep. Okay.
Oh, you made the
Right.
motion, I'm sorry.
All right.
I just seconded your motion.
Yes, you
But I
did.
said it again.
Okay, go ahead.
The next one is regard to the Council on Aging. It's the acceptance of a gift donation. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance by the Council on Aging of the gift of a crock pot valued at $75 by Joanne Dorr, and thank her for her donation.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next one is in regard to Bailey's Team for Autism. It's an application for a 5K run. All approvals from the DPW and Public Safety have been, all the approvals have been given by the DPW and the Public Safety. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the application for the 4th annual Bailey's Run for Autism 5K race on March 22nd, 2015, starting at 10 a.m.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right. The next is in regard to the Recreation Department. It's the acceptance of a donation from Voya Foundation to match volunteer funds for events held between August 1st, 2014 and September 30th, 2014. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance of a $500 donation from Voya Foundation to the Recreation Department, and thank the Voya Foundation for its donation.
I'll second that donation of $500.
All in favor?
Aye. And the final one is actually two, but we're going to combine them. It's the acceptance of a $50 donation, $25 to the Fire Department and $25 to the Police Department from Mr. and Mrs. Papadopoulos of Foxborough. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the donation of $25 to the Police Department, $25 to the Fire Department from Mr. and Mrs. Papadopoulos of Foxborough, and thank them for their donation.
I'll second that. I just wanted to read the note that they put along with it, because I hear this more often than not with respect to the police and fire when they show up. With much gratitude to Foxborough Police and Ambulance for helping save our son on January 15. Thank you for keeping a stressful situation calm and dignified. Our son is here is a small donation to help a need for the ambulances. And thank you. So the personal care that they give is, I hear it all the time, so just wanted to make that note.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's it.
That's it for action.
item.
You all set, Randy?
You have a chair?
Sure, I got you.
Leave next to it here, we can do, just slide it down.
Randy, you gonna need a microphone?
Yeah, I'll do
Share.
Okay.
You can use mine.
Okay. We all set?
All set.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and as this is my first official fiscal budget presentation for the town. I take great pride in thanking everyone and all the staff members who put a lot of work into this, particularly Randy's office and Randy himself, who's done a lot of work in this, putting this document together. My job is to provide everyone an overview as to some of the main components of the budget and how we plan to balance it for the next year, and some of the main components in putting it together. So every time I put together a fiscal year budget, I always give it a sort of a theme. And this one, of course, being the first one, is charting the course for a new future. And I say that not because there's been a bad practice here, but because it's a future that I've sort of put together since I've been here in a relatively short period of time. And certainly it's open for discussion and certainly open for debate, but some of the thoughts that I've put together in the short period of time that I've been here. So with that, I'll just begin the presentation by saying a few brief introductory statements. After taking office in April of 2014, I made it my first order of business to assess the general condition of the town's organization and to set priorities for the future. That assessment has identified several short and long-term goals, and in the slides that follow, I will outline what areas will require some immediate attention and how they have been incorporated into the planning of the fiscal 2016 budget for the town of Foxborough. The short-term goals that I identified was that we needed to initiate a process to evaluate the town hall and to develop options for repair or replacement of the existing buildings. Now, that obviously, and I'll get into that in a second, but that was, to me, it was one of the clearest things that I could see when I first took office. And so we immediately set out to do that. We put together a process that identified several key players in the community, some of the key stakeholders that needed to have a conversation about how we can actually start that process of identifying how the project would go forward. We established a central facility maintenance program, which is something that has been discussed for many, many years, and but yet it was something that I had experience doing in another community, and therefore I wanted to try and take on that role here, and sort of bringing all the parties together that would make that happen. We then wanted to next establish the new position of assistant town manager, which with the departure of the former HR director, that's created an opportunity for us to do that. So we started the process for doing that as well. And then next was to prioritize employee relations and work toward completion of collective bargaining agreements that had not been settled as well. And we were able to do that in a relatively short period of time, and also to move forward on some new fronts along those lines. And then the next thing is to prioritize technology as a central improvement for the entire organization. It's been my observation as I've been here that we're behind in several areas, and we need to really spend some time focusing on that, and to really bring us into the 21st century. I have to tell you that I'm very, very impressed by the progress we've made in just a short period of time. Aaron High has been a terrific addition to this organization. I'm really very impressed with what he's done so far, and we look forward to some great things. And then next was to establish record storage and retention procedures, which we've already done based upon the leadership of Bob Cutler in this case. Was able to hire a company to come in and help us start that process and to actually clean up some of the records that we've had downstairs for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually encourage board members to come in at some point and take a look. It's actually very, very impressive.
How's the safe look? Pretty good?
Safe looks
Very
great.
good.
Yeah, you'd be amazed. We've got before and after pictures that we'll be able to share with you. Not tonight, but at some point in the future, we'll go through that process.
Now, Bill, you're talking about, you're still paper records, or you're talking a movement towards electronic records?
Yes, and that's all part of the technology piece as well. I mean, we've got a lot of paper records, which we're required by law to do anyways, but we're also looking towards creating a central storage process of technology records, because we have way too much paper. I mean, there's certain policies and procedures that we need to have in place as to how many copies we should be providing for things, and how we can, and also take a look at how we actually run meetings. You'll see in the budget proposal that I actually included iPads for all board members to actually be having meetings on a technology format. So we go to that platform over the next.
Thing of the past?
It could be a thing of the past. We'll be able to produce certainly paper records for anyone who want them, but we shouldn't have to use it as part of our common business. It's a way which the world is actually proceeding these days, and we need to follow suit on that. Most communities nowadays have gone to more or less a virtual town hall type of environment. We're a little ways away from getting there, but I think that should be our goal, and it's something that we should strive for. And I think that it'll provide more reasons for people to get involved and become more active in the way we do business.
You know, I just have a question about the technology, and technology changes so rapidly.
Yep.
And the way you can retrieve or store information now, in a year, it's going to be different. 20 years, it's going to be different. 100 years. I mean, we have people coming to town doing research, going back, 100 years, and we have all that on paper. What do we have for the future that would guarantee that we will still have records that someone can access?
Sure. We actually, the expert who's managing this project for the town, King Systems, they've actually determined, and they've been in this business for, I think, 40 years, that microfilm is still the most, the easiest technology to use. It's the most efficient, and now they have readers that you can just plug into your PC, laptop, or electronic device, like a smart drive, and get an image of it, of the microfiche on your computer and print it off. So they're saying that is ultimately at this point in time the most trusted, long-lasting type of technology. We've been working with scanning technology in the finance department for the last 6 years, and the state's records retention center has been very slow to change the time requirements for which they will allow you to store your images on electronic scanning technology like that, because it's still, even though we've been using it for a long time and many people have been using it for the last maybe 10, maybe 15 years, it's still not a proven technology yet, how well those images are going to hold up over time. But what we've been told by King Systems is that the microfilming holds up.
Okay,
Believe it or not.
Yeah, so we've got a ways to go, and you're right. The technology changes all the time, so it's going to be our responsibility to sort of keep pace with that to a degree. We're not, government is not always the pace setter when it comes to these kinds of changes, but certainly we want to be aligned with those changes and not be so far behind that the world's going to pass us by. So we want to stay at least aligned with where that pace is. And then moving on to some of the longer term goals, and these are just this is just a snapshot of what we've determined in the time that I've been here. But there's going to be a lot more to add to this list, and you'll note that I'm a big fan of creating lists, because there's always going to be a list of things to do, and the more we keep going back and looking at these things, the more we'll be able to say, okay, we've checked that off. We checked that off. What are we going to add to that? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be in a situation where people say to you, okay, what did you really achieve? What have you really done? And if somebody asked me that question early on in my career, and I've never once stepped back and said that again, because I always had a list to say, hey, this is what we've done. This is what, if you want to add to it, let's add to it. But I think it's always a good record to keep in place. So first on the list is establish a long-term capital improvement and financing plan. Well, we have a long-term capital improvement plan, but we need to really take a look at how we're going to pay for those things over the longer term. And when I'm saying longer term, I'm talking, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now. What's our plans for replacing buildings, taking care of our capital needs, and how we're going to pay for those? Taking a much broader perspective, much broader look of our finances, so that we're not just looking at things in a 1, 2, 3, or 4 year perspective, but a much longer perspective, so we can actually, speak strategically about how we want to be over the next several years. And establish a comprehensive economic development strategy and program. We need to be part of that. We need to be the ones that sort of drive that. We can't let the world drive that for us. We have to be ones that we have to be the ones that say, this is what's good for our community. This is what will help us balance our economic development needs as well as our quality of life. So that way, if we can't understand what other people are going to do for us, do in their plans, then we should be the ones that take charge of that process and say, this is what we think will be good for our community over the course of the next many, many years. So we should establish a means and method for maintaining and improving the town's open space properties. We have a lot of them, but there's no plan in place for how we're going to take care of them. And you know something, I think that's really important, because that's what's going to be, that's a very important quality of life component of the community, that we really need to take hold of that and say, look, it's great to own this property, but how are we going to maintain this so that it's something that next, for many generations, will be able to enjoy those properties. The next is establish a comprehensive geographic information system. This is not as long-term as one would think, because there's already work afoot to try and make this happen. But you know, for the sake of this discussion today, it is a little bit longer term, because it's going to take several years before we get all the components pulled together. So, but I think probably within the next 3 years, it's realistic to assume that we'll have a good program in place. And then the next is to explore new regional service opportunities. We want to continuously look at this as an opportunity. So, you know, we're looking at things such as, you know, regional dispatch as an opportunity, looking at regional services that virtually in every part of our organization that can actually help us do our jobs better, but in a much more economic and probably more cohesive manner than we're doing it right now. The problem with doing government in New England is that we're very parochial. We always think about what goes in within our own existing borders. And we need to really take a harder look at that and really think twice about how we perform in that manner, because it's not economical, number one, and two, it's not really just smart government in many ways. We do things we duplicate things many times over, and we really shouldn't have to. Next slide. So let's take a look at some of the early accomplishments that we've been able to achieve. First, we did establish a working group to identify the needs of the existing town hall building and evaluated all the possible options. We produced a report and recommendations for a special town meeting in November, and gained support to fund the plan for the development of a new town hall building. We hired the new assistant town manager in October of 2014. She's sitting right here, right next to me, so she's proven very effective so far in her time she's been here. And we resolved 2 fire union contracts in fiscal 2014 and fiscal 2015 and 16. Next slide. And then additional union agreements that are close to being resolved include the dispatchers union and the public works union, which we're wrapping up now. And also very close in those discussions is the town hall union, which are making good progress on that front as well. We've improved the communication amongst departments and employees, and I dare say board members as well. We've tried to make everything much more open and trying to provide more information to people as much as we can, because this is an opportunity where we can really cross over those various lines and sort of blur those lines a lot more to make a much more cohesive organization. And that's, I think, so far it's been very effective. And I think the hiring of a new executive assistant sort of marks, again, of a new beginning. We've gone, we had a person who worked here for a long period of time, almost 30 years of service to this community, valued service to the community. Now another new beginning with a new executive assistant in the town manager's office. And then we've also enhanced an open dialogue between the town and schools on topics relating to central maintenance and IT. I think it's vitally important to maintain a good relationship with the school department. I mean, the two important piece of local community is the town government and the school departments. By having those two components work closely aligned and working together on items such as this, central maintenance and IT, and I dare say other topics as well. This is just only the beginning. By having that kind of relationship, we will certainly make this a much better community for all of us to serve in. So with that in mind, these are some of the budget priorities that we've set for this upcoming fiscal 2016 budget. First is the staffing for the centralized maintenance program. I made that commitment early on that we would provide funding for that, and that this budget does provide funding for some additional personnel. We've provided funding for a new reorganization plan for the fire department, which will be providing to the AdCom. We've already explained this to the Board of Selectmen, and we will be providing it to the AdCom in our budget presentation there in the upcoming weeks. We've increased the commitment to veterans benefits. I think it's vitally important that we provide this additional funding for veterans who have served our country and served our nation so well, and that we need to give back to them as well. And with a very, very successful program that we have, we're not able to support them fully at this point in time because of all the competing needs that we have, but to the extent that we can, we're going to provide some additional funding in this area. And of course, we have funding for contract settlements, which are all coming up, and that it is contained in the budget, and we've earmarked that money to resolve these contracts, so we do have solid labor relations going on. I can tell you, just from my own experience and doing this for a really long time, that without the support of the employees, and to make sure that they're aligned with our goals and objectives of the community, that we're not going to be successful. So we have to eliminate those kinds of personnel and labor relations types of concerns. We're always going to have them. We understand that, but to the extent that we can deal with them quickly and effectively, I think will make for a much better organization, and we'll be much more successful as a town in achieving that. So as far as the status of the present budget process and where we are, we're currently about $236,000 out of balance, which is actually nothing to be concerned with. I think that given the fact that it's about a $65 million budget roughly, $236,000 out of balance is really nothing to be concerned with. We'll find a way to close that gap. It's just that right now we still don't have enough information to make that happen. It's still relatively early in the budgeting process. In terms of, we still don't have any state aid figures. The budget from the governor has not even been released since we have a new government in place at the state level. The state aid figures will be known probably in sometime in March.
March 4th, I think.
And we'll be looking at to try and include that as soon as possible. Our health insurance costs are estimated with an increase of about 7.5% over fiscal year 2015 costs, but the FY 2016 costs will not be known until March. And dare say that we have actually a little bit of an unusual renewal period here in Foxborough compared to most communities. Our renewal period is actually in September, which actually is a better time to renew insurance. Both Mary Beth and I share the same belief that because actually the school department actually starts all the new employees in September. So that's the greatest number of employees that we have, obviously. So it's the fact that we have that the renewal period then is actually makes better sense. However, it does make it so it's a little more dicey when it comes to actually estimating the cost for the next fiscal year in terms of the budget process. But I actually serve on now the Maya Board of the Healthcare Trust now, so I've been following these costs very closely. We're concerned over the longer period of time that this is going to be a cost factor that's going to continue to impact our budget over the longer term, just because of the fact that we live in a very progressive part of the country here in Massachusetts, where we tend to be on the bleeding edge of most new technologies when it comes to medical resources. And as a result, healthcare costs in this part of the country is much more expensive than that of the others. And so even when you have national policy in place, that national policy is driven not usually by what's going on in Massachusetts, but what's going on in other parts of the country. So as a result, we have to take that into consideration.
California's brutal, so.
It is. Another part of the country is also just as vital in that area. Still under consideration are several new or expanded employee proposals that will not be decided until firmer revenue information is known. So some of that $236,000 is for expanded employee services and personnel costs, which I have not committed to at this point in time until I have a better understanding as to where the costs are going to be. So I'm still keeping those on the shelf for the time being. I think the cases have been made for all of them as being reasonable and actually very supportive. But it all comes down to dollars and cents and whether or not we can actually continue to support those over the
So for now,
long term.
they're under consideration, but they may not find their way into this year's budget.
Exactly right. Yeah, they're still under consideration, and I think people have done a good job of making their cases for them. And I'm very supportive of what they're trying to do, but I always put that little exclamation point, a little star next to it, that, provided we can still afford it, and that's really the key piece of that. And so now, to provide you the details of the budget document, I'll turn it over to Randy Randy Scollins for his
Great.
perspective.
Thank you, Bill. I'm just going to refer you to, I don't know if you have in your packet, the one-page executive summary that summarizes our budget picture. And in essence, as Bill has said, we are $236,000 out of balance, which in the scheme of our budget, just in the general fund alone, $61.6 million as it stands at this point. Certainly a balanceable number, not without its challenges, but certainly balanceable. But I was just going to explain what's changed since the requests have come in, because not much has changed, but it's actually brought us down from the initial requests that came in. Budget requests, we had about a $564,000 deficit, now down $328,000 from that to $236,000. And I was just going to describe what changed, the big pieces. It's actually not in this slide. It's in the packet. So what's changed on the revenue side is we picked up about $201,000 from a couple of different areas. $50,000 in an increased veterans benefits assumption from the state. As you know, we get reimbursed 75% of veterans benefits through our cherry sheet. And given the run rate of cases that the Veterans Director has, and including the estimated lag time that it takes for the benefits to ultimately make it into our cherry sheet, a $50,000 increase is warranted. It's not the full amount of the increase that we're expected to go out the door, or full 75% of the increase we're expected to go out the door in FY16, but it's on the run rate that the state Veterans Agency has been catching up to us. So 50,000 is a reasonable number. The mosquito budget assessment went down slightly, $850. I guess we'll have a few less mosquitoes this year.
We hope.
A few more.
Yeah. And then the big movers on other available funds, there were three. One is the revised enterprise and revolving account allocated indirect costs. As you know, the water and sewer enterprise and the recreation revolving account are charged, by their statutes under which they operate, overhead costs from the town, insurances, administrative support, et cetera. So I revisited that whole calculation based on the current state of the budget, including, where we stand with all the big items like pension and health and our insurances, and that added just under $83,000 in increased indirect cost allocation to water, sewer, and recreation. And then there were two other areas and other available funds that we increased. One was $38,000 from the police apparatus revolving account. As you know, we charge rentals for vehicles, town vehicles that are used in third-party details, and this will cover the replacement cost of one of the cruisers that is requested in the budget, and that's the intent of this account, is to cover things like that. So that's outside revenue coming in. And then we also increased ambulance receipts by $30,000 after a revisit of that forecast and what it can sustain, and in order to have it also support the current proposal that we've been discussing with the board. So the net is a $201,000 improvement to the revenue. Our fixed costs really didn't change much, just a couple $100 because the pension assessment came in, and we were within $278, and it was a little bit less, but that's a longer topic, maybe for another day. So hopefully we might be able to make some progress with that. But it is dictated to us what that assessment is. And then on the expense side, what changed on the school side, they initially had come in with a number that was slightly less than what they had preliminarily estimated. And then after they went through their multi-month review process, they've really only made one change, and it was a modest change, and that was to add the equivalent of a half-time elementary math specialist, and primary reason being is that the grant funding for that position was extraordinary this past year, and they're anticipating it will not be as high as it's been. Net, I believe that only brought the total positions on the school side up less than half a position across the whole organization on the school side. So that added 32,000 and change to the last estimate for the school budget. And on the municipal side, based on reviews with the town manager and the department heads, to date, there's been about $159,000 in reductions from the various requests that have come in. And the result of that is where we stand now, is at 236 out of balance. As the town manager said, there are several requests that are still out there that are under consideration, and depending upon what else changes with our picture, the town manager will make his recommendation. The major things, as the town manager has stated, that may change, obviously, would be state aid. We don't have that number yet. We have our estimates. But by March 4th, we're told we should get that, and that'll be the next big piece that will move. When we do get the health insurance number from Maya, the premium increase, that will change what is the biggest number in our budget. So if we get a 1% improvement over the 7.5% increase that we've estimated at this point in time, that would save us, say, $40,000, there. So that's the magnitude of things like that. I mentioned the pension assessment. It's set, but we're not satisfied with the process that's gotten us to this point, and maybe that will change, maybe not. We'll see. And that's our second biggest item in the budget at $3.3 million. And then again, there's the budget, possible other budget reductions as well. So net, this is certainly a very manageable budget to ultimately bring it into balance, all things considered. And the only other note that I'd make is that when you look at the progression of this, and when you see it next in about a month and a half, as we track where we stand at each given point in time, you'll notice that the total revenues really don't move a whole heck of a lot as a percentage. Same with the fixed costs, same with the expenses. That we're really focused on the margins. It's all of these, what I call nickels and dimes, but they all add up, and that's what allows us to ultimately balance.
Randy, was it last weekend, the MMA? Or was it 2 weekends ago? I lost track.
2 weeks.
We actually went to hear Governor Baker, and he actually made a statement which was refreshing. He said that they're going to try to balance the state budget, but they're not going to balance it on the backs of the cities and towns.
This year.
This year, right. But it is refreshing to hear that hopefully our state aid becomes more predictable.
Well, that would be great, but with what they've estimated, a $750 million deficit, it's hard to imagine how that's ultimately going to translate into substantial increases for municipal aid next year.
I didn't say increase, I said more predictable.
Right, yeah,
So,
okay.
One other thing is, through the course of managing a town, and I was wondering, do we ever track the adoption of best practices? And I know we do use best practices. We learn from other towns and municipalities, and they do generate either savings or efficiencies. Do we track any of that? I'll call it continuous improvement of processes, but if you're looking for, just the budget, but is there anything in the budget that said, by the way, in a particular area, we did X, and therefore we saved the taxpayers some money? Do we ever track any of those projects?
I think we do that when we're putting a major project forward. Like I'll just pick on the financial system. The fact that we've moved to electronic processing, distributed input. It saves paper, a lot of back and forth, saves time on retrieval. If you ask me to print out or to give you a listing of every invoice for a particular expense that you're interested in, it's at our fingertips now. So we've quantified those things when we've brought them forward, but probably haven't done, kept a good track record. I'll give you another, the fiber network that we put in.
All right.
That's about to, reap some even more benefits than it has as the new phone system ultimately gets put into place this calendar year. We'll eliminate the equivalent of over $50,000 in these Verizon Centrex charges that we're still using. It's this older technology. We won't need that anymore because we'll be going over our own fiber. And that was, the fiber cost us, I think, $220,000 to put in, and there's 50,000 a year right there that we'll start to realize.
Now, the reason I ask is just, someone who doesn't know the budgets, that well might just say, hey, it's an organism that keeps on moving.
Right.
But in fact, behind the scenes, there are a lot of projects that are actually saving the taxpayer tax dollars.
Well, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that cities and towns don't do a very good job of talking about their improvements. And it's one of the things that we want to try and do a better job of. And certainly by adding certain types of metrics or measures that you can actually evaluate from year to year to see how well we are truly doing. We're a little ways away from getting to that point because we're still trying to take care of some of the basics. But I think that, by what Randy has identified is some of the bigger savings on bigger projects. But there are incremental savings and different things, the way we do things, just the way we handle certain our major expenses. And how we go about doing our business by going to more of a more paperless organization. We're going to save on the paper costs. We may have some one-time expenditures in terms of technology improvements, but yet we're going to save on the ongoing costs of doing business. So, yeah, I mean, we're not there yet, but we need to be doing that more often.
Well, no, I think we all recognize it's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't think we promote it all that well.
We don't tally it up the way we should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know, say in the DPW, I know every one of these little items that the DPW director requests is creating incredible labor efficiencies with whether it's how they cut open, open a manhole or cut pipes, et cetera. Even with the police chief, with with his system that he wants to put in, Smart 911.
Well, just the way that the philosophical approach that the Public Works Department has is that their approach is that we want to buy good, efficient equipment for the people that we have, so we don't have to add more people, which is actually a much more expensive proposition over the long term. So we buy good equipment so they can actually do their job better.
But it's breaking away from a parochial thinking.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Actually, it's nice that we have goals and objectives that we can follow and test.
Right. And that's just the beginning. I think we need to do more of that. And we need to have more of a conversation about what's important. These are things that I've just observed, and so far, nobody's disagreed with those things, but I think we should add to that list, because I think there's more things out there that people, are thinking in their own minds, but haven't really put them out there. And I think we need to do more of that.
No, it's kind of nice. We have a roadmap.
Right.
And if you ever sat through a CIP process, it's sort of, what do you think is right? There was no roadmap, so this is refreshing.
Right. So in summary, the long and short-term budget goals have been set, but subject to annual review and reprioritization. The budget priorities have been identified for fiscal 2016, and those again are going to be, I've identified things that I've identified. I think we may have other folks weigh in on that to say, well, we want to maybe change those priorities a little bit, but generally speaking, I think we're closely aligned on where we are with that. The present budget proposal is not balanced at this time, but that's just due to lack of information, and it's basically more of a timing situation. The expansion of services may be possible in some cases, but we are largely dependent upon available revenues to make that happen. And I think, by and large, I think there's a lot of good cases that have been made about why we should be doing things a little bit differently. I'm also a big believer about that, and you'll find this over time, is that I like to work with an existing organization if I can, if possible. So in other words, if we have a position that gets eliminated, we'll take those budget dollars and re-engineer the position. So in other words, not just expand the job, but add people on, but take those existing jobs and re-engineer them so that they're more aligned with what's consistent with today's needs. And Mary Beth's very good at doing that. She's done that in other organizations as well, and I think that's the approach that we want to use here. And then the final budget document will be balanced before the end of March, we hope. I mean, that's our goal. And prior to the annual town meeting, of course, in May. So you will see a balanced budget. There's no question in mind. And we're required to do that by law, but we certainly will do that long before the annual town meeting. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thoughts and reactions?
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
And I agree with, it's nice to see the list, and kind of some of it is a long time coming, because it's nice to see it all in one place. Sometimes the good things about making a positive list, I don't want to lose fact that there's a lot of things that we do in the negative side, and those kind of get lost. Like you're talking about, for instance, people like to be parochial. Right? Let's think outside of the box and reach out. We did that even internally, when we're putting the different departments together into the DPW, that, let's, rather than having individual departments, the highway and the water and sewer, put it all together. But we've taken steps to try to reach out, for instance, with the veterans agent, okay? We reached out to Walpole. There was some negatives about that. Mansfield, some negatives. That stuff kind of gets lost in the shuffle. New town manager comes in, new staff. What I'd like to see, maybe we can do it in 2015, if not the beginning of 2016. If you look at the way our town government is structured in Foxborough, we've got the paid staff and all the different things that make up your budget, and there's expensive and there's revenue from what we bring in. But what's missing in this, I think, is well over 100 people. The selectmen, which are volunteers, the planning board, the conservation commission, the board of health, the school committee, the council on aging, not council on aging, but the historic and the trustees. Well over 100 to 200 people.
Yep.
That there's no unity in that group. And there's not to say, because we're all elected or appointed. You look at someone had brought up the AdCom, okay, appointed group, which is a powerful group in town. But that ability for the AdCom to talk to the CIP, which spends money, the selectmen, which is a policymaker. For instance, the planning board 40B comes in. That's one group that's a private group coming to different departments. But we need to understand the planning board, the zoning board, the conservation, the board of health a little bit better, so we're not all segmented. So what I would like to see is, we could do it once a year or once every other year, is kind of a forum where all the volunteers get together, okay? Because in effect, we're the policymakers. We change every couple of years.
Yep.
And there's no interaction between the different groups. So from a town manager perspective, I think it would be beneficial for you to have us all on a little bit better of the same page, where we can, talk about our victories or our shortcomings, or have it, for a better term, a bitching session where,
Yeah.
There's shortcomings, but I think we need to understand a better way to work together, even though we're independent.
But my experience, and that's a very good point, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think my experience has been that a strategic planning session is really, really important to be done annually with as many people as possible. A lot of towns never get to that point. Because it becomes more of a pipe dream, that, getting everybody aligned on the same thoughts. But the way you do that cohesively is to get people to agree on what the goals and objectives of the town should be. And that doesn't come just from this board, but it comes from everybody rowing in the same direction. So if we all agree as to what's important, you'll find that the cooperation just increases exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you want to be. You want to be in that position, so we're all rowing in the same direction. There's always going to be that level of disagreement, but that's a healthy disagreement.
Yeah.
Because that gets people to think beyond what they think outside their box a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, so you look at the stuff that, even in the last couple months, that have come across any of our tables, all right? Liquor licenses, master plan, all these boards working together, and we're kind of relying on a couple hours a night through you to reach out to other places. And so I think if we could put that in there as a line item, and hopefully it's an accomplishment next year that we've had our first meeting. And I think I would suggest having a consultant come in and run it.
Sure.
Where, it's not that, the typical one where you fall back and someone catches you, but a feel-good meeting where you can kind of relax and.
No ropes course,
yeah.
no ropes course, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just, because it's new, and I've seen other towns talk about it. I haven't seen them do it. But there's so many good volunteers in this town that I think could do a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
if there's some better coordination, and they wouldn't get frustrated and leave and turnover, so.
Agree.
And I think the result of that is, it's a good idea. It might come up with all the boards at least sharing the same vision for the town, and that would
Visioning sessions.
dovetail into all of this.
Yeah. It just makes everybody's job a lot easier, because there'll be less disagreement and more creative thinking going on.
And you communicate a clear message, so everybody's hearing the same thing.
Right. And we're not against each other, we're actually on the same team.
So we're going on a retreat, are we?
Kumbaya. But I
I'd like to
think,
pick that spot. It's like,
So,
Some
you
point
know, so
one.
who runs it? Is it fair to drop it on you, or is it?
I can actually help
volunteer?
with it. I actually know
Yeah.
people that can do that.
Yeah.
So,
All right, and I'd like to
yeah.
help, because I think there's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And just another example is that, I think you might have been at that meeting with the planning board, and one of the warrant articles that are coming up is deals with open space. So you take a residential development, and you have smaller lots, and you get this open space that's left over. So who maintains it, who, you know, all that
Absolutely.
stuff that's coming up.
Absolutely,
We're going into a town meeting, we're gonna vote on it, and the question is, you know, what do we do with that? What do we do with the other open space? How do we maintain it? And it's all this stuff coming together, so, you know, the sooner the better. I'd love to help you put that together, because I think there's a big benefit.
I think it's also beneficial when the members of different boards attend different meetings, just to see what's going on.
Yep.
Just to get a perspective, and then when something comes before, you can go, oh, wait a minute, I was at that meeting, and, you know, this is what was discussed. Plus, it's just interesting, you get to know what's, you know, going on around town and in the other board, at the other boards and commissions.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, let's, how are we doing on time? We're way behind. Okay, 45 minutes ago, we were gonna begin a discussion on a spring warrant articles. Do you
We'll
wanna
make it quick.
take it from the top?
Nice job.
So I think I have the most coming. All right, so you should have in your packet a warrant article spreadsheet. Sure. We have 14 here, but I don't know if, you know, they're all gonna make it. We can do a quick little summary of each one. The first one is revising general bylaws, Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3, publishing of town warrant. What that is that our current language requires us to publish the entire warrant in the newspaper. And given the last experience that we had with a really comprehensive bylaw article, it ended up being an exorbitant cost to publish that. So with technology being what it is, we're perhaps suggesting that we publish notification of a link to our website or other places where the document might be posted, and publish that in the newspaper. So,
We also provide, I mean, not everybody has a computer. I mean, most people do. But at town meeting, usually the warrant is printed, and we can pick it up. Is there any way to make that printed town warrant available, like at town hall prior to the meeting? So that if someone prefers to just go in and pick one up? Or at the at the library, council on aging?
I think, Randy,
It just means it would have to be
what's the
printed.
time frame for warrant being available at town meeting for people to pick up?
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Okay, so that process exists presently.
Yes.
Yeah, but could we make it available?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
You know, right now, it's just available the night of town meeting at that big table when people walk in. Could we, if they have to be printed up, could they be printed up and then have the town halls, the library, council on
I
aging,
don't
so
see
people use
any
it?
good reason why they couldn't be.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you could pick the same number, you know.
Right.
You know. Thank you.
And the wording states that the selectmen shall give notice of any town meeting at least 14 days before the meeting, and in addition, shall cause an attested copy of the warrant. This is the language we're looking to change, to be published in a local paper prior to the meeting day. So we could change that line to say, make available print copies, online copies, notification of availability of the document.
And just simply run a display ad in the reporter.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, maybe, John, we can work on wordsmithing that. And
Yeah, I don't
I'm
think it's gonna
start
take very long.
Putting these in actual format.
Yeah.
So that the next meeting you can look at them as articles that'll be printed
Okay.
for the ones that you think are gonna fly. The second item is stabilization fund for Southeastern Regional School. While Randy's still here, he's on that.
This was an item that the Southeastern Regional had asked for, I think, a couple of town meetings ago, and it just kept getting missed. The first time they asked late, and then by the time next time it came around, we had lost sight of it. It's there's no dollars associated with it. It's more of a technicality of all of the participating communities that use Southeastern Regional that allows them to establish a stabilization account, basically to put some of their fund balance into a specific stabilization account, much like we do. It just, in their case, they require, in our town, we would have to go to town meeting to establish stabilization accounts, which is what we do, and they need to do the same thing, to go around to all the different communities to get concurrence. So they're just looking for concurrence to be able to do that, and there's no additional cost to the town to do that. It's actually allowing them to plan for their long-term capital needs.
Will they provide us with the language for that?
Yes.
I'm sure it's
Yes,
the
they
same
will.
across all the communities.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. And Ginny, you're next on liquor licenses?
That was,
Article 3.
we decided to remove that?
Right. We're going to clarify the language of an
I
existing.
think we're gonna look at the liquor license that was over at the state hospital that's not used,
Right.
if we could transfer that.
So looking at language to transfer Chestnut Green.
Yeah. But I think we were, or Bill, or somebody was gonna reach out to the planning board
Mhm.
to see if that's even a valid request, not knowing why that's there, or
I
if
think
they
he
had
was gonna
something
find out
else.
if he considered it to be an abandoned
An
license.
abandoned license, yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Oh, here's Bill.
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Bill, the license at Chestnut Green, did you able to do any research on that to find out if it had indeed been abandoned and it was available to the town?
Yes, we did. I don't have that right for me right
Okay.
now. I don't have that, so, I thought I did check that, though.
I'm not sure what the response was. I know you put the question out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't got a response back on it yet. Sorry about that.
okay. So we'll look into that for the next time. Personnel wage bylaw. This one is, we've come up with some, we've had meetings to talk about specific policies that are in the bylaw language. We're looking at the tuition policy, we're looking at a couple of policies. But John, you were at that meeting where we ended up with a big philosophy discussion,
Yep.
similar to what other towns have, looking at having a personnel policy document or an employee handbook document, and just not having it all spelled out in the bylaw. So the bylaw would establish, the policy, it would be in concurrence with the Town Manager Act, it would define the Personnel Wage Board, what the function of that board would be, but it would simply be a bylaw, and then maybe, it would be included in the policy document, it would refer to the policy document. So we're in philosophical discussions about the
Yeah,
big
that
picture.
discussion was on how to reestablish relevance to the Personnel Wage Board, but that discussion actually might take it to a different spot
It could.
and have it
could.
function differently.
And at the last meeting, we did drill down and look at, we're drafting a new tuition policy, one that clarifies the current policy that we have, giving a limit to what the amount is, what the employee needs to do, take a course, pay for it, get a B or better. If an employee leaves after they've received tuition, is there a payback period? So we're working on a very well-defined tuition policy. We brought up some other policies that might need a little more discussion, a nepotism policy, code of conduct, those kind of policies. So although we're being really aggressive about meeting and defining policies, maybe we'll tweak the bylaw for this year, and then next year go with a big overhaul thing, because there certainly isn't enough time to make a comprehensive change. And since it covers just 9 employees right now, what we decided is we still want a great bylaw that, if situations were to change, and it could apply to a broader number of people, especially because in some of the contracts, people want to refer to the bylaw language. So I think we have to keep really, really good, crisp, fair language in the bylaw, regardless of how many people it covers.
Yeah, after that discussion the other night, I was questioning whether or not this whole bylaw could be overhauled in time for town
I
meeting.
don't think that to the scope of, doing it that way. Maybe a couple of tweaks for this year, and then looking at a bylaw overhaul for next year, once we have new town council on board and all
We
that.
did have a good conversation about the whole educational
Yep.
process the other day, though. I thought that was really helpful.
I think we will have a good tuition policy there. We're also going to do the housekeeping of which positions are now covered by the bylaw. So we'll have a nice, clean bylaw document, I think, but it's not going to, we're not going to have the big, I think next year would be a change to a policy or an employee handbook if that was the direction you wanted to go.
What we discussed in executive session about the contract with the, what do you call them?
Dispatch?
Dispatches, thank you. Wasn't that based a lot on the personal wage bylaw that you just?
Yes, it was.
So what if we have a contract? What if, in the meantime, the personal wage bylaw is changed or amended in some way?
The contract takes precedence.
Yeah, they've just
Okay.
adopted it as their
Okay, yeah.
their
And that's what we did,
Okay.
you know, we're looking at small, like, one-year contracts because we want to keep things on parallel.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
So,
looking to also try and align a lot of the benefits to be a little bit more consistent on overall.
across all the contracts.
Across all
That's
contracts.
where the end result of all this may take us,
Mhm.
where there's a personnel policy committee
Consistent policy.
that can begin to, level these policies across contracts.
Mhm.
That's where I envision it may arrive.
And
mean, we-
in my
we-
experience, we've had contracts that defer back to the personnel policies and the personnel bylaw. If they're silent on things like, benefits like longevity and sick leave and all that, everybody reverts back to that policy document. So even in a collective bargaining environment, you still have a document that keeps everything fair.
Okay.
But I do agree with you, that's more of a long-term goal.
Oh, yeah.
So regarding the planning board, they gave me 4 articles that they're going to be looking at. So Jim, you're the contact person on the OSRD bylaw.
Yeah, the open space residential development bylaw, it's something that's already in there, but they're looking to amend it for a couple of reasons. One was probably real-life applications that came in, that they looked at what they were looking to do, and they could probably do it easier and better with an amendment to the open space bylaw, which provides a better way to situate houses, with buffers, things like that. And then they had a consultant that also looked at it, a pretty well-renowned environmental subdivision consultant that said, if you've got a land that you can get 3 lots, you still get 3 lots, but if you could make the lots a little smaller, keep open space, be a little more friendly to the environment. So I think it's ready to go. They sent me a draft of it, and I spoke to Sharon, one of the planning board members, and got an email from Sharon that is still very supportive of it. So I think it's there, ready to go to the
Good. Okay.
town meeting.
The sign bylaw, digital billboards, Lorraine's the champion of that, and I think that one is going to be pushed to the fall, my understanding is. So the next one, constables. I met with Chief O'Leary today. We have revised the town's constable language. Our understanding is that the process of constables was established in like 1866 or something like that. And the very first constables were the Board of Selectmen. And the
Are we still?
I don't think so,
Okay.
no. We could talk to the chief, though. You could fill out an application. But what we're really looking to do is update a comprehensive constable policy. We've created a policy, but we don't want to make the policy the bylaw. We're just going to use the opening statement of the constable policy as the bylaw item, and then refer to this policy. And it would be an application made to the chief with his recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and the town manager about a candidate's credentials and all of that, and then there would be an appointment. He's looking for 10 people serving 3-year terms. There are 3 mass general laws that need to be upheld, so we're going to state those in the bylaw as well about a constable. the requirements of a constable, and then there are some reporting pieces that have to be done as well, filing a report with the town clerk and reporting any fees collected to the treasurer. So we're going to define all of that and create an application, so all of that will be ready for next meeting. It's in draft form right now, so we're in good shape with that.
So was this at the behest really of the police chief?
Yes.
To, oh,
Mhm. It's to update, before I came, there was a lot of research collected from other towns, and Chief and I went through a lot of the other towns' policies, and we're looking at, we've kind of compiled the best of all the best, and it's something he's very comfortable with.
okay.
Okay, so the next one was requiring EIS for applications other than site plan. This one was removed. We're not doing this. The road was accepted, McNamara Way, so this one can come off. And the FCOD density item, were you aware of that one, Jim?
I'm not aware of that one.
Okay, that one.
Do you know what that acronym is? Is it FCOD?
That was the one where we had an intern looking at the addressing the number of units in residential. I know over like Christmas vacation, Sharon had an intern go and was looking at and counting the number of residential units in the overlay district. This is the center, I believe it's Foxborough Center Overlay District. So
Okay.
I think that one's still ongoing, but I can get a report on that. And the next one was to amend the flood bylaw to include the new map references. And again, Sharon sent me word that this one is still ongoing. That's one of the articles they'll be submitting. The next one is the amend sewer and water districts. This is the one, actually, it's not really amending the districts. Isn't this the one that the commissioners are seeking a change
In the
in language regarding their executive powers?
Right.
Yeah.
And I have a copy of the bylaw, and I plan on getting together with Roger, but the weather has not been very conducive to a meeting.
And the more we looked into this one, more questions than
This
answers
is
came out
very,
of this one.
I've already read it 3 times, and yeah, I think we should look at it again.
Okay. And then while we're on, well, I'll add them to the end. I had a couple of more planning things, but, so that one, we'll put a question mark with that right now. And we need more information on that one, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And then child safety reappointment criteria, that was to correct that.
Did we find the mechanism within the law or within our bylaws that we could appoint the 2 people that we couldn't appoint a few weeks ago? I know we were going to look to see if there was some kind of mechanism.
Yeah, I did follow up a little bit with Bill on that. What I did was I went back to the November 26, 2013 vote, where this board appointed unanimously, through John's recommendation, to appoint all of those members for a 3-year period. So we did that, and then we never took that back, so that's still active. Then town meeting went, made changes, and then through a clerical error, I think December 31st, we didn't sign them up. So by law, we couldn't do that, because if it happened afterwards, then they had to take a year off. Remember that whole
Right.
thing? So I think I'm hanging my hat on the initial vote that we did for 3 years. So right now, they're all still on the books for a 3-year
So
period.
effective November 26, 2013 through
November
2016.
26, 2016.
So you're saying we
The
didn't
only
have to
thing-
go through that reappointment exercise that we did?
Well, the town council suggested that we stagger them, so 1 year, 3 years, 2 years. So if I had my druthers, have them all for 3 years solid, and then we can deal with it later, or have 3 of the members, or 2 of the members not appointed because of a clerical area. The last Wednesday's meeting, I met with them, and I basically said, keep doing what you're doing.
So in order to have a full board, it makes sense to have everybody be a 3-year term at the beginning, and then they can opt at 2016, maybe if you want a 1-year term, do you want a 2-year
Correct.
term? Yeah.
Yeah, so I would, unless I'm missing something, leave it the way it is.
Here's a question, though.
Yeah.
Does this have to go to town meeting, or can we override that to make the committee function?
Well, I guess my point was, I didn't think this was gonna go, I'm surprised this was on here, I didn't think it had to go to town meeting.
Well, we thought we had a mechanical problem.
Yeah,
We didn't know if we needed to take out that 1 year, take a year off language.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify that. I think we're okay for this, for now.
Yeah.
I think we want to try and clarify that once and for all, so we don't need that, take that language out, the first one, and then where people serve in 1 year, they no longer could serve.
So this would just be housekeeping on the...
Housekeeping
So
article
more
at
housekeeping.
town meeting.
Independent from that committee,
Yeah.
but the whole
Yeah.
town-wide, if you...
Yeah, we should clean
okay,
that
so you don't
up,
have to
because
take a year
that's
off.
kind of a crazy requirement.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
know, so, because it's not like we have a huge plethora of people that can do this, you know?
yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
Right. So clean it
So-
up and make an effective date in the future where you start a
Yeah.
process of 3-year overlapping terms.
Okay, so is this still going to remain on the warrant?
I
You
don't,
think that-
I
think it's-
don't see the urgency to...
We
when
have
is
till
this?
2016 to figure it out. We could probably
Yeah.
take this one off and put it on
All right,
for
so we
another time.
agree that the 3-year appointment is valid, and we're going with it.
right,
Mhm.
Good?
I'm going with it, so...
yeah.
All right, fine, that clarifies.
I'm not gonna, I have no reason to argue against it. It makes,
It could go on maybe
makes good
next
sense to me.
spring or
Well,
whatever.
I think if you go back, the staggered and the 1 years, that was not the original intent of the construction of this committee, so.
Oh, no, it wasn't the original one, but I actually agree with it. I agree that it should be staggered, because
Mhm.
at the end of the 3 years, you could have 5 new people coming on,
Right.
so you don't want that.
Where did the rule come that you had to take a year off between appointments? Where did that come
I
from?
think that came up at the last meeting when we tried to,
It's in the bylaw.
we were gonna sign it, but the bylaw says if you sign it after December 31st, that means you didn't appoint those people, so they
Right.
have to take a year off. And my guess is, at some point, some board had an issue, a new board came in, got rid of somebody, because I've seen it in other towns, they get rid of somebody, and then that selectman or planning board leaves, and then they come back in, and they play that game. So if you're off for a year. And there must have been a problem at some point with some board.
Okay, so we okay taking this off?
So we're going to probably table it till next.
Until we understand, yeah.
Till-
And I'll take I'll follow up with it to make sure
Alright,
it's
Okay.
fixed.
That's fine. And then the next warrant article is changing rental funds from 89 North Street to 120 Spring Street for repair. It's a conservation article, just regarding conservation properties.
That 89 North Street, is that the house that was demolished? So it's no longer there?
That was the one.
Yeah, I think it's an account that's set up in that,
Right,
and
with
they're just
that
looking
name,
to change the
yeah.
account, yeah.
That was to move that money.
Yeah. And then item 14 here, Garrett Spillane Road, town to accept that. That's, again, that's another one that's got a lot of intricacies in it, that I think more questions have arisen since this got on here. So, right now, this is not a planning board article. It says it's Board of Selectmen, but procedure is that it should be.
Well, the usual thing is the planning board usually presents town acceptance warrant articles.
Right.
And,
There's, on this particular one, I spoke to the planning board, and they're adamantly opposed to it right now, so.
The language that I have is they're not supporting, accepting this right now. So I think this is something that needs more research. So they did, however, give me accepting McNamara Way and accepting Mickamore Road as 2 additional planning articles. So we just crossed off.
Garrett's
We
Lane and-
postponed sign by law, number 6, number 8, and number 14, I think, for more information or future. But then they asked to put accept McNamara Way and accept Mickamore Road as additional warrant articles.
Okay. And number 3 is not an additional liquor license, it's a, I guess, transfer.
That one's going to be, that's a question on that one. And also the amending the sewer executive powers still has a question mark on it. So
Okay.
this list will look very different next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Bill, we were an hour late for you, but we've
That's
arrived
okay.
at your town manager update.
Well, just a couple things I wanted to convey to you, everyone, is that, first of all, the snow and ice scenario that we've been enduring for the past several days, I was just checking online to see what the latest forecast is, and more snow again on Thursday and more snow again on Sunday into Monday. So, more to come. Stay tuned. So, but needless to say, the DPW crews have done a terrific job. Our fire and police personnel have also been out there helping out whatever possible to keep people safe, and I'm very grateful to everybody's efforts to try and do the best job they can. I know that the public works guys have been literally working around the clock to get things cleaned up. We're running short on space to store snow now, and our snow farm is getting smaller and smaller, which is really concerning in some ways. We're running short on salt, and we're getting some shipments in, but not a lot. So we're running a little short on materials, which is consistent with what other communities are enduring as well. So we're going to figure it out. We'll get there. We're going to be okay, but it's a little bit concerning the way it's working out. But just to let folks know that we have been declaring, we had to declare somewhat of an emergency relative to the funding of this, so we could spend beyond our planned funding. We have a snow and ice budget of $215,000. We have a planned contingency of $250,000, so we have a total budget of $465,000. And as of right now, all costs incurred through through January 31st, we have about $219,000 or $220,000 that we've spent, and that does not include private plowing costs, which is a very big number as well. So we've been spending a lot of money, obviously, and it shows because of all the work that had to be done, and we'll continue to do what we have to do to make the roads safe. So again, thanks to everybody. I just wanted to give everybody an update on what's been costing us. It's a big number. I think the number actually surprised me that it's not higher than what it is because of what we've had to do. So, but that's just the latest update, and we'll keep close tabs on that.
Bill, did you want to remind people about hydrants?
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. A lot of the work that's been done is that we're running into two problems. One is that mailboxes are starting to disappear because the snow is so high. So two reminders to folks: please dig out your mailbox. Unfortunately, and we apologize if we're plowing snow into mailboxes and it's causing some damage to mailboxes. We'll figure that out later. But right now we're dealing with what we have, and that's obviously a lot of snow, and there's not a lot of places we can put it. But just remember to dig out your mailbox, and also dig out the hydrants, because if you don't dig out those hydrants when you need it the most, that hydrant's going to be frozen. It's going to be under snow, and it's going to take that much longer to get the water service to the house. So make sure we keep those clean, and also do yourself a favor. Those people have oil. Try and make sure you leave a pathway for your oil line, and for your gas lines as well, gas or propane if you have that, so that people can have adequate heating service to their homes as well. So a lot of good reminders and keep your vents clean as well. If you have outdoor heating, that vents out to the outside, make sure those stay clear, and keep the snow away from the exhaust from your vehicles as well. Those are all just safety tips to remind people. I think you've heard it probably enough from a lot of folks, but we just want to make sure that people stay safe during these difficult weather scenarios. So we'll get through it. We always do, and where New England is, we're tough, and we'll live through it. But we had a reminder of that last night, how cold it was. Jim DeVellis and I stood out there in the cold weather.
I had a blast.
The cold weather up at Gillette Stadium to welcome home the victors from Phoenix. Congratulations to the New England Patriots for winning its fourth Super Bowl in 6 tries, and as in the words of Bill Belichick, it's on to Canton, Ohio now. For all the things that they've done. It's absolutely amazing what they've done, and congratulations to Bill Belichick, to the Kraft family, Robin and Jonathan, and their entire family for putting on such a great program in place, and to Tom Brady, of course, for winning his 3rd MVP, and thank God we had Malcolm Butler. Who would have thought? Truck. Yes, I heard. And
Brady gave him the
Tom Brady actually gave him the truck, and Tom
Good
Brady
for
did
him.
a nice job for doing that, so congratulations to him for doing that, and well-deserved.
Fantastic game.
And Julian Edelman, great performance by him as well, and all the guys that did just a terrific job. We're very, very proud of these guys, and hope that we can actually have some sort of a celebration. We'd like to talk. We're talking about what we can do, and we're talking about options, and we're trying to figure out something that we'd like to celebrate that victory for them. Because actually, it's Foxborough. It's not Boston. Just to remind everybody that their home is actually here in Foxborough. So again, congratulations to them. And then finally, I just want to say that we did receive a grant, with notification today from the MAPC that the town received a grant from in the amount of $33,000 for helping to develop some economic development strategies for Route 1. Sharon Watson put that grant proposal together, and we just received word today that we received $25,000 and another $8,000 commitment of MAPC technical services that will be utilized for the town for the Foxborough FY2 SCR application, which was a technical service grant for planning along Route 1 for future economic development needs. So again, congratulations to Sharon for doing that, and thanks to MAPC for considering our application and granting it.
Bill, do you know if the application went in for the Mass Gaming Commission?
It did. We actually sent that in last week, and
Beautiful.
we sent that in, and we're now waiting, and we have confirmed that they've received it, so they do have it. All right, so we're waiting on funding for that, and I think we requested a pretty significant amount of funding for that. So,
Great.
all right.
Okay,
So-
thanks, Bill.
Yep. Any other questions?
Well, just one other, was in the information packet, can you shed a little light on the solar panels that are proposed at the dump?
Yes. Well, I can only provide a limited update at this point. But we have signed the contract. We are the contract. The contract that is in place. We are what they're doing right now is working on the SREC piece of it and the energy and the work with and the agreement with NGrid to try and convert the energy over to the grid. And NGrid rather, yeah. So I always get too confused. And so we're working on that piece right now, but we're working closely with the company to get all the details worked out. We hope to see construction starting this year on that. So we'll start seeing the panels built out at the landfill, and once that happens, that's certainly going to help us. It'll help reduce our overall electric costs, which we're hoping that we can somehow get some relief on our budget by doing that. We were hoping this year we would get it, but we're not planning on it at this point, but we should actually start to see some of that relief in this next fiscal year.
Great.
Okay.
So that's our plan. All right.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, anything else, Ginny?
Nope.
All right. Well, it's 1:15, and I'll take a motion to adjourn if we have one.
Second.
Okay. Good night. See you in 2 weeks.